Welcome to Jackie's Craft Table.
Hello, everyone. This video is called 10 Cards, 1 Kit, but it's actually going to be 13 Cards, 1 Kit in honor of the special edition Halloween card kit from Simon Says Stamp. I was so excited when they released this kit, and this box was literally bursting at the seams. It's just packed with fun products. This product here is one of my favorite things from this card kit. I'm going to give you a closer look at this product here in a minute. These are Boo Brads. They're so cute. And then this is some Nouveau glitter. It's called Ivory Sands, and I've never tried Nouveau's glitter before. It's such a beautiful color, and I do end up using this on one of my cards. I did get glitter all over, but it was worth it. It turned out really beautiful. There's a lot of products from this kit that I didn't end up using. I'm sure my kids and I will get around to it. These cute treat bags look like a lot of fun. It comes with 12 plastic bags and 49 different pieces that you can decorate these bags with. Here's the toppers for them. And then it even has some googly eyes and some other things that you can decorate the bags with. My kids really loved the plastic spiders too. They've already taken several of those and have decorated the house with them. Here is the cute pattern paper that came in this kit. I'm going to flip through these so that you can see them. I used up quite a bit of this pattern paper for these cards. And it's a very heavyweight pattern paper. And a lot of them are embossed. And they look really shiny, like these polka dots. I love those cats. They're kind of embossed too. And then they have these cute cut-aparts and tags. There's the bats. Those are embossed. I was really glad it was single-sided because I hate cutting into paper when there's another design on the back. They included these puffy stickers. I ended up using a few of these in my cards. Now this die here is one of my favorite things from this kit. So cute. I think I used that on my very first card. There's some more goodie bags. And then the stamp set. Oh, that was just chock full of cute images and sentiments. I think I used almost every one. And then, of course, they included some cardstock. And they're all perfect Halloween colors. I love that ivory sheet. And they're all very heavyweight cardstocks, which I like. And that's everything from the kit. Before we get into the card crafting, I do want to show you these printed cardstock shapes. I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed using these on my cards. I usually like stamped images that I can color in or do things with, but I think I ended up using most of these cutouts. I went through and I kind of put the ones together that I wanted to use on the cards, like these tombstones I end up using on a card. So I'm kind of pre-planning my cards, some of them here. The colors on these cutouts really go along nicely with the cardstocks that was included in this kit. On to card number 1. As I said, I'm using the cute Boo Ghost die. And I cut that out with a piece of white cardstock. And I'm just saving the little Boo words. I'm putting those aside. They pop out really nicely. I'm using a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I cut that out with a die that made it look kind of distressed along the edges. And now I'm using carved pumpkin and wilted violet, some nice Halloween colors. I'm using Bristol Smooth because the distress oxides really blend nicely on this kind of cardstock. I don't want any of the white of the cardstock to show, so I'm carefully blending the orange and the purple. I don't want it to turn too muddy. And then I decide to come in with some black soot and distress the edges even more. I really like the effect of this black soot. And then once I hold my ghost up to this panel, I decide that I want to extend the black down a little bit because I want there to be black behind his eyes and his mouth. So I'm just carefully adding a little more black to this panel. And I put some foam squares behind my cutout, and now I can put my ghost on top of this panel. Yeah, I really like how the black shows through his eyes and mouth. I cut out this ghost in some black fun foam, and I'm just going to use the letters, and I'm going to put them back into this white die cut. I like how the black kind of outlines the word boo, makes it look a little more crisp. I'm using some Gina K Connect glue behind these letters. I'm just dotting those. I also cut out a piece of orange cardstock with a tattered edge die. I'm going to mat my main panel with this pretty orange. And I like how the carved pumpkin Distress Oxide really matches well with this orange cardstock. I used some black cardstock for my card base, and I just want to add some color to the inside of the card. So I cut down some of the pattern paper from this kit into a flag, and I'm using one of the cut-aparts that says, "No tricks, just treats." I think that looks really cute down in the corner. And then I'm adding a few puffy stickers around that. These puffy stickers are just darling. And they're not too puffy, so they're not going to add a lot of bulk to the interior of my card. Just a cute surprise. Here's a look at the finished card. And that one was really fun to put together. I like how bright it is. Now on to card number 2, and I have this little mini cube of Gina K Amalgam ink, and I'm trying this for the first time here. It really reminds me of VersaFine Onyx Black ink, which is an ink that I love, I use a lot. And this cube was really juicy, so I had to be careful when I pressed things down that I didn't make the lines too thick with this ink, but it's nice ink. I'm going to make a little pattern paper of my own with some of the smaller images from this stamp set. I think this bat is so cute. And then I'm going to stamp some of the candy images around. And I'm trying to be careful not to press it down too hard where it squishes the stamp too much. I really like making my own pattern paper. I think it's a fun technique. And these images are also very cute. So I'm just turning my stamps so that they're not all facing the same way. And this is just a piece of solar white cardstock. I think it's the 110 pound. And then I'm adding some little stars. They came with 3 different little stars, and I like how wonky and cute they are. They just add a very nice touch to this card. They work as a filler. And now I'm going to pull out some Copic markers and start coloring in my images. This went really fast just because they are so small. I stamped my sentiment onto a piece of yellow cardstock that I cut out with a circle die. I had to look up a picture of the candy corns because I wasn't sure what order the colors went. I'll have all of these colors listed on my blog. I'm going to mat this panel with a cute piece of pattern paper that has candy all over it. And I cut that down to fit my card base size. I'm adding some foam squares behind my sentiment. And I'm hoping this kind of looks like a little moon that these bats are flying around. And then I'm going to put some black fun foam behind this panel just to prop it up a bit. And I'm using some strong double-sided adhesive on this, just so it stays put. I cut it just a little bit smaller than this panel. And then I can go ahead and attach it to my card base. For the inside of the card, I'm using another strip of this cute pattern paper. This card base is from my own stash. It's a Hero Arts cardstock, and I like it because it has color on the outside and then on the inside it's white. On the inside, I also glued on one of the cutouts that says Halloween, and that completes card number 2. For card number 3, I'm going to stamp out this cute Halloween tree onto a piece of Nina Solar White 110-pound cardstock. And I'm going to stamp that up with some MFT's Extreme Black ink. I think this is still my very favorite ink that I use. And I'm going to be doing some Copic coloring. So this is a great ink if you're going to use your Copic markers. I end up stamping this out a few times because it is a new stamp. I'll speed that up so you can see the progression. And then I do let it dry for a minute just because I stamped it so many times. I'm going to use one of my circle dies to outline a moon behind this tree. And I'm going to start coloring the tree first. I'm going to color it in with a light brown. And again, I'll have all of these colors listed over on my blog. Some of the branches are so small, you just have to use a very light touch to stay in the lines with these markers. I think if I would have used my colored pencils, it would have been a lot easier, but I just felt like playing with my Copics. I'm going to add some shadows now with a darker brown Copic marker. This starts bringing the tree to life. And I'm just scribbling in places just to make it look like a rough old tree. And then I come in with an even darker brown. I'm going to use some light browns to color in this cute little owl. It's just very simply colored. And then the moon, I'm using my Y11. It was the lightest yellow color that I had. And I like how bright this moon turns out to be. I'm speeding it up really fast just because this did take me a long time to color in. I'm trying to erase the pencil marks. Some of the pencil gets captured behind the Copic marker ink, but that's fine. I'm going to go around it with a dark purple. And then I'm using, this is the darkest green I have, just to color in some grass around the bottom of my tree and fence. And now for a lot of coloring with these purple markers. This takes a while because I go back and forth and I'm trying to get a very smooth blend. So I do light purple around the moon and then I come in with an even darker purple. And I'm using up a lot of ink here, but I just wanted to see how smooth of a blend I could get. I was pretty pleased with the results. I'm just being careful not to go over any of the tree or the fence. I thought about using some blue Copic markers for the night sky, but I wanted to try out these purples. I decided to color in the fence gray. I didn't want that to be another shade of brown. Just wanted to change things up a bit. So I go in with a light gray, and then for the shadows, I come in with an even darker gray. It almost makes it look kind of black, a worn out black. And then I realized my tree needs to be a little bit darker, so I come in with an even darker brown. I'm not coloring over the edges of the tree just because I want it to look like the moon is shining on them and makes them look more round. Then I realized I need to put in some shadows from the tree and the fence on this grass. So I'm just using the same green marker. I think I need to supplement my green Copic markers. For my sentiment, I'm going to heat emboss that. So I'm using my embossing bag. I made sure that this Copic marker piece was dry before I did this. And then I ink those up with some Versamark ink. It says Happy Spooky Halloween. And I'm going to emboss those with some white embossing powder. But I decided to ink them up one more time just in case. I like how this white really pops off of the dark purple and the green. Now I can melt that with my heat tool, and I'm being careful not to let the paper warp. So I'm moving it pretty fast. And then you can tell when it's melted because it gets really white and shiny. I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again. It's so much fun to heat emboss. It's just like magic watching the powder melt and turn into this shiny embossed sentiment. Because I had this placed in my mini Misty, I'm going to stamp it again. This will just help to make the words a little more dimensional and pop out better. So I'm inking them up with more Versamark ink and putting down more of the white embossing powder. And then I can just go over that again with my heat tool. Now it's time to put this card together, and I'm using some dry adhesive to add this panel onto a black card base. And my panel I cut down to 5 1/4 by 4, just so you can see the black around the edges. I'm using another cut apart to decorate the inside of my card. This is a cute fish-tailed image that says Spooktacular. And then I'm using more dry adhesive just to lay that down flat inside my card, as well as a piece of the purple cardstock that came in this kit. I'm going to put a stripe below and a stripe above this sentiment. Here's another look at the finished card. I do come in later with some gel pen just to add more highlights to my tree. You'll see that over on my blog. I'll have still shots of all of these cards. The star of my next card is going to be this ghost cardstock shape. With the cardstock from this kit, I'm cutting out some ovals, and I'm also going to use this ghost pattern paper. I'm attaching that to a black card base. I cut down the pattern paper so that it would be a little bit smaller than my card base. I'm going to adhere everything down flat with my tape runner, except for the purple cardstock, and I'm going to put some foam tape behind that. I really liked the look of this white ghost in front of this purple paper. I thought it set it off well. Of course, you can use whatever dies you have in your stash. This would look cute with rectangles or squares. I put more foam tape behind my ghost, and the sentiment, I put foam tape on half of it and then glue on the other half just so that it would match the height of my ovals. For an added touch, I'm gluing on some lavender sequins that I had in my stash. And then for the inside, I'm going to use another cut apart, and it just says boo and stuff. I thought that was really cute. And that finishes this quick and simple card. I did glue on an orange stripe on the inside. I thought that just made it pop a little bit more. On card number 5, I'm going to stamp the little skeleton right onto a piece of the pattern paper, which I have already die cut with the tattered edge die. And I'm going to white emboss him. You can kind of see him on the paper with the Versamark ink, but once I pour over the white embossing powder, he really pops out from this black paper. He's such a cute image. I'm using my reverse tweezers to hold onto this small piece of paper so I don't burn my hands when I melt the powder. Doesn't take long to melt these lines, they're so thin. And then I'm going to do some simple coloring. I'm going to color him in with a white Prismacolor pencil and his hat with orange, and the band around his hat I'm going to use purple. And he has a cute little bow tie, and I'm just using orange on that as well. This was just some quick and fun coloring. I'm using another piece of pattern paper to match this panel. And then for my sentiment, I'm going to stamp the sentiment that says, I feel it in my bones. And I'm going to white emboss that onto a piece of this purple cardstock. I really like the white on this purple cardstock. It really pops. I used one of my banner dies to cut that out. This was a really fast card to put together. But now I'm going to adhere everything together. Okay, so first I put down my skeleton pattern paper and then another piece of orange cardstock. I'm roughing up the edges of this panel just to make it look old and Halloween-like, I guess. But I just want it to make it look a little bit wrinkled. And I just put a dry adhesive on the center of this panel, not along the edges so they stick up. And I put some foam tape behind my sentiment, and I'm just going to put that down at the bottom of my card. And I'm kind of roughing up the fishtails on that, too. This card I ended up changing a little bit, too, for the photographs. I added some sequins around him. But I am going to show you how I use some of the orange ribbon from my stash just to put a little bow at the top of this card. I think it adds a lot. And if I had been thinking, I would have glued this around the back of my card before I added these panels to my card base. But as it is, I'm just going to add a little bit of liquid adhesive to glue these down tight. So I go right to the edge and hold that down. And then I can just cut off the excess. I'm attaching the bow with a little micro dot, but they're really strong. I'm just using my pen knife to scrape those off and put a few behind this bow so that it stays put. I really like the look of that bow. I'm using some Distress Oxides to stamp out my sentiment in purple and the skeleton one more time on the inside of my card. Here's a look at the outside again. And another peek at the inside. I just like the colors on the inside. That's a lot of fun. On my next card, I'm going to use some of the glitter that came in this kit and a piece of the ivory cardstock. So I cut that down to be my card base, and I'm using a piece of double-sided adhesive, and I'm just cutting off the excess, and I'm just pressing this tape down really well into the cardstock. This is a messy process, but it's really fun. I tried to keep it under control with a piece of typing paper underneath it. I take off the release paper, and now I'm going to pour over some of the glitter. Such pretty glitter. I love this color. This card is going to be my fancy Halloween card. I'm going to call it that. I'm pressing this glitter into the dry adhesive. I'm kind of burnishing it with my finger. I don't want any to fall off the card once I'm done with this process. So I'm rubbing that in really well. I'm going to put this glitter bottle away first, or else it's going to spill all over my desk, I'm sure. And these dry Swiffer towels are really great to have in your craft room. They pick up the glitter very nicely. I cut down another piece of pattern paper. I'm going to center that onto this card base. And I also cut out an oval from some orange cardstock. I propped that up with some foam tape. And now I can glue on these pretty flower cutouts. Some I'm going to glue down, and some I'm going to prop up with some foam squares. I like this white pumpkin. It looks really elegant. I'm using a cutout sentiment that says Happy Halloween. And then I'm going to add this flower with a few foam squares as well. On the inside, I'm going to decorate it very simply with another strip of this same pattern paper and this cute pumpkin that says Trick or Treat. And I can just cut off the excess and glue this down flat. And then I saw these cute stars that was included with these cutouts, and I thought I'd use those up as well. And then for an added touch, I'm going in with my Gina K Connect glue and just dotting around some of these flowers. And then I'm going to pour over more glitter. And I realize I need to just throw that topper away. I'm just going to gently add this over it, and I'm going to let this sit for a few hours. So I go away from my craft room for a while and get some other things done while this dries. And then when I come back, I can just tap off the excess, and you have all of these cute little sparkly dots, these detailed dots on your finished card. I'm using the Swiffer just around them just to get the glitter off the paper. And here's a close-up of this card. I really love how this one turned out. It's just elegant. I don't think I've ever made an elegant Halloween card before, but these cutouts were just so pretty. I wanted to use them up. So give this glitter a try. It's a lot of fun. My next card is going to be a cute children's Halloween card. I'm using the little cutout of the 3 trick-or-treaters. I think that one is so cute. I'm gluing that down flat onto a piece of the purple cardstock. I also used a grass die to cut out some long grass to put under them. And then of course, I had to use the pattern paper that matches this little cutout. I'm going to put a strip of this down the side of my card base. And then I can just, again, cut off the excess. I used a piece of dark cardstock from my stash just to put at the bottom of this card. And I just glued that down flat. And so I'm going to put the 3 trick-or-treaters kind of at the top corner with the cardstock cutout that says, "Let's Party." And I'm going to prop up my sentiment bubble with some foam squares. And then at the bottom of the card, I want to put another little pumpkin sitting in the grass. I think that looks so cute. And then I want to use up the little candy corns. So I put those at the side of my little pumpkin. And I'm just gluing those down flat too. On the inside, I'm using another piece of the cute pattern paper as a strip across the bottom. And then this cute pumpkin as jack-o'-lanterns shining bright, wishing you a spooky night. Some of the sentiments on these cardboard cutouts are really cute. And then I'm going to add a few enamel dots around this card. I think that just gives it a cute touch. Here's another look at the inside. Next is card number 8, and I'm going to stamp my images onto a piece of craft cardstock with some black ink. I love coloring in pumpkins, so I had to use one of these pumpkins for a card. I stamped that up a couple of times again. And then I'm going to pull off this pumpkin stamp and use the smaller one. And I had to move it because I wanted it to be closer together than the stamps would allow. Now for some fun coloring with some Prismacolor pencils. I love the look of Prismacolors on craft cardstock. If you've watched my videos, I'm sure you've seen me do this before. It's a really fun technique. Using 2 different oranges and then a yellow on his eyes to make him look like there's a candle inside. The next pumpkin, I want it to look more cream colored, like the pumpkin on this pattern paper. For the shadows, I'm using brown, and then I decided to come in with a little orange. I'm letting some of the paper show through. Extending the grass a little bit with a Copic multiliner. Then I can just color that in with a green Prismacolor pencil. And I'm making sure to add shadows underneath these pumpkins. And then I'm going to add a little bit of blue for a nighttime sky around them. And then it looks kind of flat to me, so I come in with a purple and a few other colors just to add a little bit of color to the sky. I'm adding more greens to the grass. And then I'm trying to darken my shadows a little bit here. And then I'm going to restamp the pumpkin. That one I left on the door of my mini Misty. And then I'm going to try, this was kind of scary to do, but I set up the larger pumpkin stamp and I restamped that and I was successful with that. But I did stamp onto a piece of acetate first just to make sure I got it positioned perfectly. So here I am stamping it on the acetate just to make sure that it aligns. And then it did align perfectly, and so I can just take out the acetate and stamp over my images. And so that panel is done. You can see what a big difference restamping them makes. And then, of course, my camera stopped, and it didn't show me putting down these cute stripes of patterned paper and cardstock. I glued these papers diagonally across my card base. I cut out a frame for my main panel out of cream-colored cardstock. Again, I'm sorry I wasn't able to show you how I put this card together, but it's pretty simple. For this card, I'm going to stamp my image onto a piece of purple cardstock. And this little stamp is so cute. It's the little cat peeking out of the witch's cauldron. And I'm going to heat emboss this. I think the white embossing powder just looks really nice on this purple cardstock. So I stamped up my stamp with some Versamark ink. And I stamped it up a couple of times as I usually do. And now I can pour over the white embossing powder. I'm going to melt this. And then I'm going to do some more stamping with my Versamark ink. And I'm going to stamp the candy images again from this set. I want it to look like a magic cloud of candy coming out of this cauldron. Down some anti-static powder first. And I'm also going to stamp the little pumpkin image next to this. Adding even more anti-static powder just to keep the stray white embossing powder from sticking where I don't want it to be. Now I'm going to use this little acrylic block and start stamping the candies coming out of this cauldron. So I stamp a few and then I don't want the ink to dry. So I go ahead and add more white embossing powder, but I'm not going to melt it until I get all of these little images stamped out. And here I'm adding the embossing powder. You can see it better now. And I'm just going to keep going until I get lots of candy stamped onto this panel. There are a lot of little candy images in this stamp set. And I'm going to use the stars again. I really like the look of the stars around this. Makes it look magical. And here's my completed panel. Now I can melt these. And I'm going to pull out my Prismacolor pencils again to color in these images. I'm letting a lot of the purple of the paper show through, especially on this cauldron. I'm just going to put in the black shadows. And then for the highlights, it's just going to be the purple paper showing through. And then the cat's going to be gray and brown. And then I'm just coloring in the candy with random bright colored pencils. Then I wanted to have a green cloud, a magical green cloud also coming out of this cauldron. And then I'm going to put a little bit of orange around that. And I even come in with some red after that, just to make it look really magical. I'm going to cut this out with a die. And I'm being careful not to rip my paper. I just pull off the purple tape very carefully. And I think this panel turns out really cute. I'm using a piece of green cardstock to mat this and onto a black card base. I'm using some foam tape behind my main panel just to prop that up a little bit. I'm going to fishtail this sentiment, which I heat embossed with white embossing powder. And it says, "Let's get this Meowloween party started." And then I thought it needed a little more color behind this banner, so I'm going to cut down a piece of the green cardstock to put with that. I'm just going to cut off the end and glue that down with some dry adhesive. For the inside of the card, I'm using this cute cut apart from the pattern paper that says "Trick or Treat." These have been really fun to use on the insides of my cards. I like how the gray sentiment looks on this black card base. And then I'm just simply going to add a pumpkin on top of that. I pulled out my Wink of Stella to add a little bit of glitter to the candy and the hat. And that completes my card. As I said before, I'll have still shots of all of these cards on my blog. Card number 10 was really fast, but yet really fun to put together. I'm going to stamp out the sentiment again that says "Happy Spooky Halloween." And I'm going to stamp this with some gold embossing powder. It's nice to use these stamp positioners so you can stamp it a few times. This is Antique Gold by Simon Says Stamp. And then I'm going to melt those. And then I'm going to do even more stamping around this sentiment. I like how shiny these letters get once the powder has melted. So pretty. So I'm going to use some anti-static powder again. And the cute little ghosts from this stamp set, I'm going to use around the edges of this card. I'm going to emboss these with white embossing powder. And you can't see them when I stamp them out here, but I'm just going to go all around the edges with these two different images. Even I have trouble seeing them, so I have to pour on the white embossing powder before I continue. And then some are just going to go right on the very edges. You won't see the whole image. But that's okay. It just looks like they're everywhere. It looks really cute. Now I can go ahead and melt these little ghosts. Now for some more Distress Oxides. I'm going to use Wilted Violet around my sentiment. I think this is the perfect purple color for Halloween. It's so cute. The ink kind of obscures the sentiment, but you can go over that with a dry cloth and buff away the oxide from your sentiment, and it makes it pop again. I'm using more black soot along the edges of this card, and now you can really see the ghosts pop. I'm using a sticky note just to protect my card from fingerprints and to keep my fingers from getting dirty. Now I'm going to buff off these ghosts, and they really pop from the black soot. I'm going to go back and forth just to get a nice blend between these two colors. It does kind of rub off the Distress Oxides, so the next time I buff them off, I'm going to be a little more careful just to go over just the sentiments and the ghosts, not to rub over the whole card panel. I'm going to cut this panel, and I'm using the Tattered Edge rectangle die again. I really like this die for Halloween cards. And I'm going to mat my main panel with a piece of plum cardstock from my stash. And I popped up this main panel with some foam tape. For the inside, I wanted to use this spooky house cutout. Not going to be much room to write on this card, but I think it really looks cute. And that finishes this card. I'll give you another look at the inside here. That one was just fast and fun to put together. Now I want to show you 3 more cards that I created with just the die cuts. And I had filmed these, but I lost my footage, so I just wanted to show you some fast cards to put together. I used the 3 gravestone cutouts on this card, and I used a die that had kind of a hill of grass. There it is. It's new to my craft room. I really love those dies. And then I stamped the sentiment Happy Halloween with white embossing powder and gold. This card, I used the cute pictures of the witches, and I used the puffy stickers to look like nails, and then I just drew lines to look like the string holding up these pictures. And I decided to add glossy accents over them, but it didn't really work out. It kind of warped these cutouts. I really liked how this card turned out, and then I just used another cutout inside the card. And now for lucky number 13 card, I used the cutout of this little witch. I made her the focus of this card by cutting out a circle in the gray cardstock and putting a piece of green cardstock behind her, and I really think that makes her pop. Then I used the cutout that says "You're bewitching." Some pattern paper and some sequins also added cute touches to this card. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. You can visit my blog for still shots of all of my cards and check out my Etsy shop. I hope you all have a wonderful day and find the time to sit down and create some fabulous cards. Thanks for watching. Happy Halloween!